Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Slam Talk Sports. I'm, of course, Slam. Welcome to Slam's desk. It is a beautiful Friday afternoon here in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Of course, the home of sport, the home of Australian rules football. And this is the Friday preview show. A massive game with huge ramifications to talk about from last night. The MCG is the Hawks. Oh, yes, Hawkball was absolutely back as they thrashed those impotent, those limp, those coldly wobbling Magpies to the tune of nearly, well, it was about 10 goals in the end was the margin. We'll talk about that in just a second. Always got to mention the socials. It is Slam Talk Sports on TikTok and Instagram. It is Darcy_Duncan21 on Twitter. That's where you'll find me and all my pontifications, prognostications, and sometimes questionable betting suggestions. Let's talk about last night's game. I was there at the MCG to see Hawthorn in full effect. It was the Hawks taking down Collingwood by how many points was it in the end? What was the exact margin? I'll tell you right now, it was 64 points, a dominant 10-goal win. And now, before we talk about Hawthorn, I've got to start with Collingwood, okay? They were top of the ladder for the first, 16 weeks of this season. They're now starting to do what they do this time of year. It gets a little bit wobbly for Collingwood up the top. They potentially will fall out of the top four entirely if they had to lose to Adelaide next weekend. But how have we got here? How have we got to this position? Collingwood fans, I know you've been talking to me. I've been talking to you over the past couple of weeks. You've seen it coming. You've seen the writing on the wall. It has been the defensive miscues. We saw that last night with Darcy Moore just to start the game. He gave the Wizard a little tap on the bum and said, there you go. There's a little gift, you absolute spell master, you little spellcaster. You can have one for free thanks to me. Also, Billy Frampton, I was told by people that Billy Frampton is the answer down back. He's the one that's going to help Collingwood re-establish this dominant defense. Well, he's dropped a chest mark. He dropped a chest mark and the Wizard said, hell, hold on. I'll take that little potion off you. I'll take some in a little butter beer. I'll drink it. I'll scull it down. I'll kick my second of the evening. Okay. The defensive miscues, the lack of connection between their such strong defenders over the last 3 seasons is one big issue for Collingwood. And of course, that was amplified by Jeremy Howe getting concussed in the opening seconds of this game. Now, personally, I watch a lot of football. I think there was nothing wrong with that. It was a coming together. It was mainly a head clash between the hard-headed Duke Nukem, Jai Nukem. God, what is his head made out of adamantium? And Jeremy Howe, who suffered another injury. What a great player Jeremy is. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see him the rest of the home and away season. Definitely not next week against Adelaide. Potentially not the following Friday night against the Melbourne Football Club. So these defensive struggles are probably going to be seen in full effect against a mighty Adelaide forward line next Saturday night. And on top of that, I think the forward line of Collingwood is really struggling at the moment. Jamie Elliott was one of the best small forwards in the competition this year. He's fallen off a cliff the last month. Brody Myercheck kicks 2 goals in what was a hard night to kick goals for Collingwood, but even he isn't in some sort of great form. We see Jordan De Goey return into what became a full game for the Collingwood Football Club. I thought he was okay, but they are missing Bobby Hill. They are missing Bo McCreary, and they're missing their midfield winning the damn football. Josh Ward, Connor Nash, Jai Nukem, all the blokes that ran through Hawks midfield, the blokes that I questioned over the last 3 to 4 weeks, they showed up and had one of their best performances for the whole season. They were truly magnificent, the Hawks. It was their ability to change angles off half-back. We know how good the Hawks are with their hawk ball movement, whatever you want to call that. They're great users of the football. Collingwood want you to kick it long down the line. They want Darcy Moore. They want Darcy Cameron, the two Darcys, to intercept the footy and get the ball back on their terms. And they go whooshka from the back line. Handball game, overlaps. Dan Houston, Josh Dacos, Scott Pendlebury getting on the end of it and delivering inside 50. We didn't see that. They were under pressure and Collingwood could not win back the ball on their own terms. And in addition to that, Darcy Cameron, who's been magnificent this year, was unable to intercept the ball the way he would like to, and Lloyd Meek pushed hard the other way. We saw him mark it twice, about 2 metres out. Now, I haven't played a lot of football in my time, but I know for a fact you cannot allow a big ruckman or a big key forward to mark it on the goal line. That is one of the biggest no-nos any coach will tell you. You get back there, you get that fist, you shine it up real nice, and you stick it right through the Sharon, okay? You punch it through the post. You can't allow what happened last night, Collingwood. There's so many issues across this side. Now, I know you're listening. You're questioning me. You're saying, Slam, Collingwood are in the 4. Okay, we can fix this. How do you fix it? How do you fix it against a rampaging, ravenous Adelaide football team that will come? Well, they'll come with an absolute full force in that first quarter. The Crom will be absolutely picked. They'll be ravenous and ravishing to take on the Collingwood Football Club, who've owned them for the best part of the last 8 to 10 years. I can't see it getting the job done, even though Collingwood have been counted out many times beforehand. Hawthorn, on the other side of things, they're going to play finals football. Win that game last night, yeah, you're playing finals footy. They take on Melbourne next weekend in the MCG. Should be a certain win. But finally, their finale for their home and away season is at the Gabba against the Brisbane Lions. What will be a absolutely riveting Sunday night game. If they were to win that, then Hawthorn could actually host a final. And going into last night, I thought they might miss the finals. Football changes so damn quickly. Look at the disposals right here. It was Jai Newcomb that led from the front with 28 touches. He was very, very important in this contest. And not just for the fact he was able to knock out Jeremy Howe with his vibranium-made brain, which was attached to his adamantium-made skull, but it was his work in and under against the Collingwood midfield, which has struggled, I think, for the last 4 to 6 weeks to match up against the great ball winners in this competition. And of course, I must mention Jack Gunston. Kicks another 4 goals last night. What is he, 33 years of age? This is a vintage season. Don't you just love a vintage season from an older player? When they go out there and produce one of the best years of their careers, I think Jack Gunston might actually be all-Australian as that third tall. Now, he doesn't necessarily play as a third tall in this Hawthorn team, sorry. He's more of a lead-up target, deep from the forward pocket or from the full forward position, but he has that flexibility and that versatility to mark it on his chest and to lead up the ground if required. I think he's the perfect complementary third tall if you were to pick him in an all-Australian squad next to a Riley Thilthorpe and next to a Jeremy Cameron. But hey, that's just my opinion. On the Collingwood side of things, before we talk about, their poor performance, I want to talk about the management in the lead up to the game and also the team selection. We saw Ned Long placed as the sub. Ned Long has been so good for the first 12 weeks of this season, and we've seen a major drop-off over the last 2 months. Nick Dacos started on the bench last night. Nick Dacos has been carrying Collingwood for the last month. He is one of the best players in the competition, if not the best player. He had a poor game last night. His first touch, he fumbled as he was streaming 60 metres out. He usually eats that up, delivers it on the chest of Myhacek or Membry, and it's a certain goal. We didn't see that from Nick last night. He had moments, but it wasn't the full contest of dominance that we see usually from the Whispering Man. So many issues with Collingwood. I think almost all of their players are out of form, in particular their captain, who leaked another 2-3 goals just on him making poor errors, poor decisions. Do we see Collingwood return to form? Do we see them win multiple finals? Do we see them in a prelim or on the last Saturday of September? Right now, I'm going to say absolutely not. Absolutely not right now, unless they can beat Adelaide. They beat Adelaide, they're back. They lose to Adelaide, it is all over. That's simple in my mind. Hawthorn, can they win the flag? I still think no. I don't think they've got enough to match it in the midfield without Will Day, without playing, without someone like Brisbane who have Ashcroft, McCluggage, Dunkley, and Neil when he returns. Someone like the Gold Coast Suns, Anderson, Rao, Took Miller, a brilliant ruckman in Jared Witts, and all their options up forward. Hawthorn are a good team. I just don't think they're a great team and great enough to win a premiership. They don't have as many elite talents, even though they're arguably the best coached team, and they know their identity of how they want to play so damn well. Let's move forward to a massive preview of what's left of round 22. We start with Friday night football down at GMHBA Stadium in Geelong. It's the Geelong Cats taking on the Essendon Football Club in what might be one of the most lopsided games in recent memory. Essendon, according to the bookies, are the biggest outsiders you could possibly imagine. They are $30 to win. Currently $27 on Sportsbet. I saw them get up to $30 on one of those bookies earlier today. They started about $18. The line's about 70. Is there any case that Essendon can win this game or even get close? I struggle to find one, considering how poor they are, even with their senior players playing. Okay, even if you are to throw Ridley in there, throw Langford in there, throw Parrish and Caldwell, they're still going to lose by 40-plus points. That is the talent level of Essendon and how they're playing right now under Brad Scott. Geelong, on the other side of things, coached by the great Chris Scott, one of the greatest winning records of the last 15 years as a coach. They're going from strength to strength. They are demoralising teams, particularly down in Geelong. They just smashed poor Adelaide on Sunday afternoon football. Now they get their chance in prime time on free-to-air TV, Channel 7. Everyone's going to be watching Jeremy Cameron. Jezza is a chance to kick 85 goals for the season after tonight's game. He's currently at 75. I think very realistically he could kick 8, 9 or 10 tonight on the likes of Laverty or Blackiston. Yeah, as an Essendon fan, this is going to be really, really tough to watch. These are your ins and your outs. In comes Mitchell Nevitt. Out goes Patrick Dangerfield, who has been rested off the 5-day break. For Essendon, in comes Jai Menzies, potentially a retirement game. We'll see what happens there. No disrespect to Jai, but he's been in and out of the team for a number of years. He doesn't have a contract for 2026. And out goes Oscar Baker, who was picked up in the mid-season draft. It's a nice latte. Anyway, I think Geelong are going to absolutely smash Essendon tonight. From a betting side of things, you can bet on Jezza. The odds are absolutely terrible. I think 5 goals was $1.50 a couple of days ago. Now it's about $1.30. There's just no point. There's no value unless you want to chase him to kick 8, 9 or 10 goals, which I don't necessarily recommend, but it's a big chance to happen in tonight's proceedings. I don't mind Bailey Smith 30 touches. I don't mind Max Holmes 30 touches. They've both been so prolific this season. And against Essendon, I expect them to both dine out. Max had 30 against us last time. Absolutely dominant, 155 Supercoach points. And Bailey Smith is in great form over the last 2 weeks. After a minor dip between round 13 and round 19, he's now going off and looking to build on his great season and clinch not only an All-Australian Blazer, but potential top 5 finish in this year's Brownlow medal. I don't mind him for disposals. I don't mind Max Holm for disposals. I don't mind Tyson Stengel to kick 2. Tyson is the reason why we won a little bit of money on Slam Slips this past weekend. I think $1.55, $1.60. It's not terrible odds considering how the game should go. And Brad Close, so often the unselfish man in Geelong's forward line. He's about $1.50 to kick a goal. I don't like him shorter than $1.40 just because he is so unselfish, likes to give them over the top. And we expect Jezza to get a couple of easy ones tonight. But in a game that should be an absolute blowout, I think they'll find a way to get Brad his goal and give him a bit of credit for the work he's done this season. Geelong just win. Let's move forward to Saturday afternoon football at the MCG. We've got Richmond hosting St. Kilda. On the Richmond side of things, in comes Nathan Broad. Tom Lynch returns from his 5-game suspension for his cruel hit on Jordan Butts not too long ago. And in comes Timmy Taranto, who's enjoying another fine season for the Richmond Football Club. Out goes Luke Traynor. Out goes Jonty Fall. And out goes Thomas Sims. For St. Kilda, in comes Mateus Philippou, who's overcome his plantaris issue, which has dogged him for the whole season. In comes Darcy Wilson, who I don't mind. I think he's a pretty good player, not just because his name is Darcy. In comes Liam Henry. And out goes Mitchie Owens, who will miss the rest of the season. Out goes Ryan Burns, who's in a moon boot at the moment. And out goes Angus Hasty. Oh, Angus, don't be hasty. We won't treat you like a baby. Milestones, Jack Steele. It's his 200th game. He was the sub last weekend. And Tom Morris tried to trade him about 10 minutes into the game. Bit odd, that one, Tommy Morris. Also, you weren't first to break the Simon Goodwin news. That was Jay-Z Clark. And he's pretty unhappy that you've gotten all the credit. Jack Steele, 200th game, great player for the St. Kilda Football Club. Of course, he was part of the Giants Academy and was traded for a second-round pick. One of the great pickups for St. Kilda over the last 30 years. Now, Richmond, can you make a case for them? They do get Taranto and Lynch and Broad back, but they are still, I think, about 25-point underdogs in this one. St. Kilda have beaten North Melbourne and Melbourne over the last 2 weeks. In fact, they swept Melbourne this year. I still think Richmond are going to go pretty close in this one, just because when you count them out, they find a way to get close or cover. The cover is 25 points. They were pretty good at that early in the season. They then had a bit of a dip where they lost to like Doggies by 100 points. They lost to, Cats by around 100 points. But it's even. They're playing another bottom six team, at their home ground. MCG, I think it will be close. I think Saints win, but I think it won't be by 25 plus points. It'll actually be an interesting contest on Saturday afternoon. Betting side of things, always, I've got 2 men I look to when I see St. Kilda play, and you know who they are. Nazaya Namasaya to have 30 plus disposals. Now, Nazaya's hit this mark just about every single week since he started breaking out as a superstar of this competition about 8 to 10 weeks ago. Jack Sinclair is in ripping form over the last 2 weeks, 30 plus, both of those games. After a bit of a dip between rounds 20 and 15, didn't quite have his usual impact, but now Nazaya Mackay has gone into the midfield. It is now Jack Sinclair time in the back line. Kick-ins are yours. Handball receives are yours. Hey, if you want me to make you a nice cowboy hat, that's yours too, because he's just a nice person. I like Jack Sinclair and Nazire Wanganeen-Miller in this one. About $1.35 for Nazire to have 30 on tab, and about $1.30 as well for Jack Sinclair to have 25 disposals on the TAB. Let's move forward to Saturday twilight football, and there's a recurring theme this weekend. The games are fucking shit. In for the Brisbane Lions is Will McLaughlin. It is Brisbane taking on Sydney at the Gabba. I may have jumped the gun there. Yes, it will be a good game if you support football and Brodie Grundy as your Supercoach VC or captain. That makes it a pretty good game. Let's go back to the teams. In for Brisbane, Tom Doedee and Will McLaughlin. Now, Doedee hasn't played for the better part of 2+ years after suffering recurring knee injuries. He had an ACL tear he suffered, at the Adelaide Football Club where he was vice-captain a couple of years ago. He then went to Brisbane in the hopes of winning a premiership and playing for a very stable and well-oiled machine that is the Lions. Instead, he did his knee again. Now, with Ryan Lester out, with Jack Payne out, it is finally Tom Doedee time. Is there a chance, is there a scenario where Doedee is so good this week that Ryan Lester also comes back next week, but they keep Doedee in? Is that a scenario? I don't know. He would need to play lights out footy. That could be hard when it's going to rain at Brisbane. Predicted between 2 and 20 millimetres. That's like saying, okay, I might pick you up at 5 o'clock, or I might just fall asleep and never pick you up and ask you for money the next day. You don't know the difference between 2 and 20 millimetres. It could be anything. But anyway, we'll be a little bit wet at the Gabba on Saturday afternoon. Out, of course, goes Ryan Lester, as I just mentioned, and out goes Lachie Neale, who suffered a quad injury during the game, during that win over Collingwood last Saturday night, in a game he played pretty well in. So it's shocking for super coaches out there. It's shocking for Lachie, who's looking to build into the final series. But knowing him and how well he prepares and how good of a player he is, of course, last year's Gary Ayres medalist for the player of the finals, I think Lachie will be just okay when the whips are cracking in September. On the Sydney side of things, in comes Hayden McLean to provide a tall marking target in their forward line, and out goes Peter Laddams, who's been deputising for Brodie Grundy over the past couple of weeks, giving my man Grundles a little bit of a chop out. He doesn't need it. He just had 39 disposals against Toddy Goldstein. I'm telling you, he ain't need a rest in this game. He's going to be doing his usual thing. The line is 24 points, I think. It's 24 points. Sorry, I haven't been doing as much research on the lines this week. I will pull that up for you right now, people. It is currently 24.5 points. Wow, slam nose slips and slam nose betting. What a stunner. I think Brisbane will win this game. I think the weather isn't too much of a deterrent, and if you want to chase Brisbane to win by 20 plus points. 25 is a little bit hard just because of the weather, but we know what Brisbane can do at home against a bottom 8 team. I mean, the bottom 9 effectively this year. What Sydney are sitting in 10th, I think. They smashed Port Adelaide by about 10 goals on what was a dry Saturday night. I think Brisbane have the capacity to put teams to the sword when they're up and running. And this time of year, particularly with top 2 on the line, I can't see a way that Brisbane don't get the job done. Let's move forward because there's not much I like betting-wise. I mean, I could talk about Jasper Fletcher, who's been one of the breakout players this year. He's having 20, 23, 24 touches every single weekend playing off a half-back flank, even plays a little bit of back pocket, even rolls up to the mids and is an extra at stoppage. I could talk about Jasper Fletcher, but I won't because it's a wet game. I don't like betting in wet contests. Let's move forward to the next game of the round. It is Carlton taking on the Gold Coast Suns at Marvel Stadium. In for the Carlton Football Club is Hudson O'Keefe and Billy Wilson. Out goes Harry O'Farrell and Mark Pittonet. Well, I think it is Pittonet, but he goes by Pittonet, even though we think there's a little bit of French in it. So you call him what you want. He says Pittonet, I say Pittonet, okay? On the Gold Coast side of things, in comes Malcolm Rosas, and out goes Sam Flanders, who had a little bit of an injury as well. Hopefully not a serious soft-ish injury for Samuel Flanders, who was a great player last season, but seems to be lost in the midfield shuffle right now up on the Gold Coast. The margin is around that 5-goal mark. I do like to mention the margins, but they do change come game time. Right now, the margin is 26.5 points in the Gold Coast Suns' favour. Now, we know the Suns don't have a great record at Marvel in recent years. David Damien Hardwick doesn't even know where it is. He needs to play his Google Maps if he wants to find this game. Earlier in the year, they lost to Richmond at Marvel Stadium, but they did beat Essendon by about 30 points when they produced one of their best quarters in their history only a month or so ago. I think Gold Coast get the job done here. Not too worried about Sam Flanders coming out just because they have so much depth in that midfield. They don't really need him to play a crucial role this season, but potentially could show up in a big moment in their finals series, which they will be playing in after they win the rest of their games. Potentially they lose to the GWS Giants next Saturday in what is one of the games of the year. But besides that, they won't be losing any other games for the rest of the year. I think these Gold Coast Suns are going to go very close to coming top 4. Betting-wise, well, I don't really have any insight for these games, unfortunately. Carlton aren't exactly playing great football, but their midfielders are doing well to equalise the disposals of their opponents. We just saw George Hewitt and Patrick Cripps have strong games over in Perth against Brayshaw and Sarong. They both went under on their disposal marks, particularly Caleb Sarong, who's not only suffered with a tag this season, but just suffered from poor form. I don't think Caleb's having a good year at all. People have him in All-Australian and Brownlow considerations. I think that's absolute madness. Caleb is a gun player. He's just not having a good season. Betting-wise, again, I just there's nothing I really love in this game. There's one man who's pretty much matchup proof, and that is Noah Anderson. If you've seen his performances over the last 6 weeks, his game against Collingwood, his game against Richmond last week, and Richmond kicked 2 goals for the course of the whole game. He just goes off, particularly in one quarter. He might have 12, 14 touches at halftime and say, yep, I'm having 12 in the next. I'm going to have 12 touches. I'm going to have 40 touches for the game because I am Noah effing Anderson. I'm going to win the damn Brownlow if things go my way, particularly with the game in hand. That can easily happen for Brownlow's son. So that's why I like Noah Anderson if you want to have a couple of bets this weekend on this game. But besides that, there's nothing that really comes to attention that I think is an absolute mortal, an absolute lock. Milestones, I like to mention them from time to time. It was George Hewitt's 200th game on Saturday night. What a great pickup. He's been from the Sydney Swans as a free agent. And for the Gold Coast Suns is Jared Witz's 200th game, potentially one of their great trades in the history of the Gold Coast Suns. They picked him up from Collingwood when he was, pick 67 or 70. Was he not an academy product? He was a something product. He was a long-term project from New South Wales and said, Witsy, you got to come down here, come to Collingwood, come to the biggest club in the land. You're going to play backup ruck to Brodie Grundy. Then one day we're going to trade you to the Gold Coast. You're going to be one of their greatest ever players. Okay, that's what's going to happen. What a magnificent player Jared Witz is. And it's also Connor Buderick's 50th game. Umpired by Matt Stevick, John Howarth, Nathan Toner, and Cameron Dorr. Make of that what you will. We move forward to the next game of the round, and it is over in Adelaide. We see another game in the Ken Hinkley Farewell Tour. It is Port Adelaide hosting Fremantle. These are your ins and your outs. In comes Connor Rosier, the captain, who was a laid out last week due to illness, even though he never flew to Melbourne, let alone get a bus to Geelong. Don't know how that happened. In comes Jack Lukosius, his best mate, former top 5 pick for the Gold Coast Suns. In comes Willie Rioli. Yes, Willie Rioli's been dropped, but he's finally come back after a couple of games in the Sandful. And in comes Christian Moraes. Sorry, I choked then. Thinking about Christian Moraes' cash generation and Supercoach. It was absolutely terrible. Out goes Jace Burgoyne. Out goes Jack Whitlock. Out goes Hugh Jackson, the Wolverine. And out goes Dylan Williams. On the Fremantle side of things, in comes their captain, Alex Pearce, and their former captain, Nat Fyfe. A big discussion to have about Fyfe in a second. Out goes Oscar McDonald, and out goes Hayden Young. Oh, Youngie, what a great player he is, but he just can't seem to get on the park this season. Another soft tissue injury. He'll be wrapped in cotton wool until their final series begins, I would have thought. And he's so dynamic. He's so important. He's a goal-scoring mid. He's a power runner. They must get him back out there on the park. But what do you do with a player like him who has recurrent soft tissue injuries? He missed the first 16 weeks of the season with a hamstring. He's now done a groin coming back from a hammy. I feel those sort of players are predisposition to getting injured in that season just because they haven't had that loading. They're not battle-hardened. Their body's probably not ready for the stress of an AFL game for a month-long time, let alone a brutal final series. So I hope that Hayden Young can get healthy for September. Looking at those ins and the outs, I still am pretty confident that Freo can win this game. The margin is, I think, 27.5 points over in Adelaide. I don't know if they'll cover that line, but 25.5 points, but I am confident Freo to win. They have so much to play for. Port Adelaide are playing for absolutely nothing. So I think it will be a victory for the Dockers. But I want to talk about those ins and outs. Alex Pearce has missed a little bit of time with a few injuries this year, and they've actually won a lot of games with him being out. Is he going to disrupt what they're doing in that back six? Probably won't play out this week, but they play Brisbane next Friday night, and what's a massive, massive game. Pearcey needs to play well. I'm not saying to hold his spot, but in order for Freo to keep that momentum into the final series, which they will be playing in, okay? And the other one is Nathan Fyfe. I love Nathan Fyfe. He's one of my favourite players of all time. Prime Nathan Fyfe is just about as good as any midfielder you'll see. A goal-kicking midfielder, an absolute brute, an inside contested beast. But in 2025, I don't think I'd trust Nathan Fyfe. I don't trust him to play. He's named on the interchange. If he's just sub, I've got worries. I've got concerns. We saw what happened not too long ago. What was it? 6 weeks ago, Nathan Fyfe was the sub, and he hurt his calf at halftime trying to warm up. If this is a final, this is a big game. This is, say, Brisbane next week, or the Doggies the week after, or even a final series. Can you trust Nathan Fyfe? Can you say, yeah, Fyfe, you're going to get through. We trust you. Your hammies and your calves are that of an 80-year-old man. They're similar to Slam Talk Sports' calves. Okay, they could go in any moment's notice. Can you be our sub? Can you be a man to come on and change the game if we have an injury in the first 5 minutes? What if someone like, I don't know, Heath Chapman or Luke Ryan was concussed, similar to Jeremy Howe last night, and Nat Fyfe is your sub, and you don't trust his body to get through a full game? In a final, you get exposed, you're stuffed, your season's over, and the criticism will last for months and months and months, probably until you play your next game, because you'll probably lose if your sub does his calf trying to warm up. I've got big concerns on Fyfe as much as I love him. I'd love to be proven wrong on Saturday when he has a good performance, but I just don't see it happening. Betting-wise, another game I don't particularly like. If you've got some advice for me, please let me know on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you can find me. But again, I just don't think Freo, their players are in good enough form to put your hard-earned on. Andrew Brayshaw and Caleb Strong, they're not regularly hitting that 25 disposal mark, and that's the only way you're going to get any sort of value on them. And there's no other players at Freo which I particularly like, apart from Jordan Clark, number 6. He's been fantastic. He's a lock in my All-Australian team. He's the glue that holds that defence together, and he gives them so much rebounding opportunities with his leg speed and elite kicking. I think he's the man you'd bet on if you're betting on anyone in this game. Let's move forward to Sunday football. Now, the first game on Sunday is the Giants hosting the North Melbourne Football Club down at Manuka. Hold on, we've just had teams come through. Let me refresh this one in case there's been some changes. For the GWS Giants, in comes their captain, Toby Green. In comes Mash Grujewski. And out goes Toby McMullen and Jesse Hogan, who's had a recurrence of that foot issue, I think. I think it flared up on Thursday Night Football when they got absolutely smashed by the Western Bulldogs. On the North Melbourne side of things, Tristan Sherry comes back in after serving his 3-game suspension. In comes Bailey Scott. In comes Geordie Payne for his debut. Kicked 6 in the VFL last weekend. Be good to see Geordie out there. And in comes Cooper Trembath. Ooh, I don't know much about him. Out goes Paul Curtis, who has been suspended. Out goes Nick Larkey, who has suffered a recurrence of that knee injury. He'll miss the rest of the season, unfortunately, for Suv. Out goes Zach Banch, who suffered a rib injury in last week's game. And out goes Robbie Hanson Jr. It is Geordie Payne's debut game and also Cooper Trembath's debut game. Good luck, you fine gentlemen. Hope you go out there and get a kick better than I did at East Sunbury. The margin is 50 points for the GWS Giants. I think they easily hit this mark. There's no rain predicted in Manuka on Sunday early afternoon. It should be a slaughtering. It should be a beatdown. The Giants need this win. A little percentage can't hurt either. When you look at next week's game, though, against the Gold Coast Suns, the Giants almost certainly have to win that game as well in order to play finals football. So they might have an eye on their opponent next week, but they won't look too far past the North Melbourne Football Club as they beat them by 10 goals. Not too much else to say about this game. Let's look forward. Oh, betting-wise, there's one bet I like. It is Toby Green to kick 2+ goals. Now, Toby Green has a great habit of feasting on shithouse teams, but also filling in the absence of Jesse Hogan. When Jesse's out, I do feel Toby steps up. 2 goals, about $1.60 on most books, isn't a bad bet. If you want to bet on Lachie Ash or Lachie Whitfield to have 25, 30+ touches, you can do that. Not a lot of value in that, I feel. The ball might live in the GWS forward half, so Lachie Ash might not have as much to do. I just prefer to bet on forwards or half forwards or midfielders in games that I think will be blowouts of this time of year, but that's just my personal betting opinion. Let's move forward to the Sunday 3:15 Channel 7 game. Everyone's going to be watching Melbourne. Wait, what? It's Melbourne taking on the Western Bulldogs. Now, of course, Melbourne sacked their coach Simon Goodwin early in the week. Apologies. I did make a little TikTok and Instagram about that and the issues that have happened at Melbourne over the past couple of seasons, particularly the cultural issues in addition to the on-field performances. Just the one change for the Melbourne Football Club in Jed Adams for his debut game and out Harry Sharp. The margin for this one is, I think it's 24.5 points. It was my tip of the week when it comes to my tipping comp, which we are slowly but surely vanishing into nothing. Yes, we are slowly but surely throwing away our season after locking Collingwood last night, but we won't talk about that any further. As I said, in Adams, out Sharp. The margin is 24.5 points. I think the Doggies covered this with ease. No rain predicted at the MCG on Sunday afternoon. It looks like a pretty fine weekend here in Melbourne. The Doggies have all to play for, and in particular, they smash bad teams. Melbourne are not a good team. They're a bottom 9 team. What do the Doggies do to them? They flog them usually by 60-plus points. It's going to be a Bont game. It's going to be an Ed Richards game. It's not going to be a Tim English game, probably, because he's playing against the GOAT in Max Gawn. But I do think the Doggies' midfield and their potent forward line will be too much for Melbourne to handle. Darcy and Norton, what's the line? We just saw them kick 13 goals against Essendon. We saw them dine out most weeks. What will they do to Melbourne with no Stephen May and no Jake Lever? Look at those key defenders. It's Tom McDonald and Daniel Disco Turner. The only two recognised key backs, if you want to call them, in Melbourne's defence against Darcy and Norton. I think it'll be too much for the Ds. That line of 24.5 looks pretty damn tasty to me. I'm taking the Doggies 30-plus in this one. Betting-wise, I don't mind Bont 25. I don't mind Ballydale at 25. The D's have traditionally given up numbers to attacking half-backs. And Marcus Bonampelli is Marcus Bonampelli. Enough said. I also don't mind Norton goals and Sam Darcy goals. I generally drift towards Darcy for some reason with my bets, even though Darcy cops a better defender at times, and also Norton's in tremendous form. Norton's kicked 50-plus goals already this year. But on averages, Sam Darcy averages about 3.3 goals per game. I'm backing him to kick 3 against a team that's given up, sacked their coach, and doesn't have their key defenders. But that's just my opinion from watching football every single weekend. Okay. Let's move forward to the last game of the round. There's one more game over in Perth, and as always, the Eagles are playing in the game of the round, right? Not quite. Okay. West Coast host Adelaide. Yes, the best team in the league. Plays the worst team in the league, but we'll all be watching it because we just love the footy here at Slam Talk Sports. In for the West Coast Eagles comes Sandy Brock, King of the Mountain. In comes Jack Graham, who saved a 5-game ban for a homophobic slur. Naughty, you absolute disgrace of a human. And in comes Matthew Flynn. No, I've just been joking with you, Jack. You're not a disgrace of a human. Everyone makes mistakes, okay? I've made mistakes. Potentially doing this show for 23-plus weeks. Anyway, out goes Harry Edwards. Out goes Terrell Dewar, who did his hammy sitting up to fish. Okay, that says everything you need to know about Terrell Dewar. And out goes Bally J. Williams. Interesting that West Coast continue to play these ruck charades, this ruck merry-go-round. Flynn's in. Williams is in. Flynn's in. Williams is in. They're both in. One of them's out, okay? I think with a ruckman, particularly with a younger midfield, you need to have some sort of continuity. You can't be chopping and changing every single week. I don't think that works. I don't think it works, particularly for a club which is struggling to build any sort of form. On the Adelaide side of things, in comes Rory Laird, in comes Chris Burgess, and in comes Luke Pedlar. Out goes the Texan Taylor Walker for a little bit of a rest. Out goes Braden Cook. He is cooked. And out goes Brodie Smith. Now, Smithers, what a great player for Adelaide Football Club. An All-Australian all those years ago. A Supercoach darling. I'd love to see him break into the team even as a sub for a final, but I just don't think he's in their plans right now when they're at full strength. The margin is 61.5 points last time I checked on this one. Ooh, do you like that one? Do you like 61.5 points when you've got the worst team playing the best team in dry conditions? It probably will get to that. Adelaide don't necessarily need the percentage to get that high. You could see players like Rankin or Dawson maybe sitting on the bench in the last 10 minutes. But in the first 2 hours and 15 minutes, it could be an absolute slaughter. It could be a massacre. This is a mismatch of the highest order. I think Adelaide go out easy winners. Milestones, Ryan Marrick, 50th game. He's been an absolute superstar for my Supercoach team for the first, couple of months of the season. What a great pickup. He was a good kick and a great story after being selected in the mid-season draft. And of course, Liam Duggan, their captain, plays his 200th game. If you saw Liam Duggan last week against Melbourne, he had tape on both his knees, both his quads, both his calves. He's just struggling to get through this season. West Coast had so many injuries and so many players out of form that it's admirable that their captain continues to soldier on when he's clearly struggling with a few minor issues. Betting-wise, I don't mind one of these Adelaide key forwards to kick a bag. I mean, seriously, Thilthorpe, Fogarty, you pick which one. I personally am a Thilthorpe guy. He's kicked more goals this year, particularly in the last couple of months. Darcy Fogarty is an incredibly accurate kick, but I do think Thilthorpe gets more premium opportunities because they like to isolate him in the square due to his height and his strength. So all it's going to take is one or two good opportunities, maybe 10, 15 metres out from goal when he's isolated. And there's your goals. He won't miss them. And then if he kicks one from 50, kicks one on the run, kicks one from 45, he can do that as well. But I just think he's getting the better opportunities to kick goals right now. And that makes sense because he's in all-Australian form. That's it for the preview. That's it for Slam Talk Sports Friday round look ahead / Friday preview / discussing my bets and how I met Sam Doherty last night. You didn't think I would wait. You thought I'd wait. You thought I'd wait. You didn't think I was wait. You thought I'd mention off the top. Well, I didn't do any of those things. Okay, I waited till we're over half an hour into the show to say I met one of my favourite players in Sam Doherty last night. Now, everyone knows I'm an Essendon fan. This is a 1985 premiership poster right behind me, along with the figurine of Zach Merritt. But doesn't mean I don't love the Royal Flying Doctor, Sam Doherty. What a great man he is. Able to give me a little bit of his time to talk about last night's game and to talk about his great friend Daniel Gorringe, who officially lost the damn plot. You know what? We should probably check in on Gozza, doing his live right now. What's he doing? He's wearing the sunnies like he thinks he's Bob Dylan. Again, he's talking to no one, I think. And he's just sitting around in his own stench. I've been told it really does smell in there. And it doesn't smell like success either because he is a Carlton fan. So unless he's going to break out tonight, it's going to be a long 2 days for Gozza in the box. I don't know why he's doing it. I mean, it's marketing. Obviously, he's a marketing genius. But I don't really know why he's doing it because I know he's an insane person. He's a little bit mental. He's not all there. But just look at him. He just looks like a shell of a human who's just living on nothing but hard rated, which is, by the way, a very fine drink. Hard rated. Now available in orange. Money, please. That's it for Slam Talk Sports Round 22 preview. I'll see you all next week. I think I might be on Fancast on Monday. Not sure. Still waiting for the text to come through saying, hey, Slam, we need your takes on the footy and general, and congrats on interviewing Sam Doherty. Haven't got that message just yet, but we'll wait and see. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see what happens over the rest of the weekend. Love you all. Hope you all enjoyed the show. Listen to it right now. Okay, so as soon as you see this message, say, yep, I'm going to stop watching the football. I'm going to stop talking to my friends. I'm going to stop enjoying my Friday night. I'm going to listen to this guy shout at me for 35 minutes. See you all next week. Same Talk Sports. It was a pleasure, as always.